Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You're ready to talk about some commercial real estate?
Always ready to dig into that.
This should be a good one, especially if you're thinking about selling a property anytime soon.
Right.
We want to make sure that is as smooth and profitable as possible, right?
Absolutely. Knowledge is power when it comes to these things.
Couldn't agree more. So we're looking at some great info today from Allies Commercial Realty. They're based in Indianapolis, but honestly, a lot of what they're talking about applies no matter where you are.
Yeah. They get into the nitty-gritty in a way that's super useful.
Totally. And one thing that jumped out at me right away was this emphasis on a strong client-broker relationship. Like, they really hammer that home.
Yeah. It's not just about finding any realtor, right? It's got to be the right fit for what you're trying to do.
Exactly. They actually use this phrase, winning partnership, throughout the material. What does that look like in action, though? Like, beyond just getting along with your realtor?
I think it boils down to shared understanding, like when you and your broker are on the same page right from the get-go, it minimizes stress throughout the entire sales process.
Right, because miscommunications can really cost you time and money in this game.
For sure. And those miscommunications often stem from misaligned expectations, communication styles, even risk tolerance. Aligning on those key factors from day one, that's what lays the foundation for a smooth and ultimately successful sale.
That's such a great point. It's like you're both working towards the same goal, not just kind of existing in the same space.
Exactly. You're a team, not just two ships passing in the night. And speaking of being on the same page, another thing Allies dives into is the importance of market knowledge.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one.
And it's not just about knowing, what similar properties are selling for. It goes way deeper than that.
It's about understanding the why behind the numbers, right?
Exactly. Allies breaks it down into 3 levels of market knowledge, which I find incredibly useful.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for us.
So first, you've got your local nuances. This isn't just about knowing what properties are selling for. It's about understanding the micro trends within specific neighborhoods, like what's happening in the hyperlocal market that could impact a buyer's perception of value.
So give me an example. What kind of micro trends are we talking about here?
Okay, let's say you're selling a warehouse in an area that's seeing a surge in artisanal food businesses. Now, highlighting that the zoning allows for food production, that could command a premium from a buyer looking to capitalize on that trend.
Oh, that's a great example, because if a buyer is looking to open a microbrewery, for example, they need to know if the zoning will even allow for that.
Exactly. That's the power of understanding those local nuances.
It's about going beyond the surface level.
Exactly. Now, the next layer of market knowledge is competitive pricing. And this IS about looking at comparable properties, but it's not just about what they sold for yesterday. Markets shift constantly, so you need flexibility and a deep understanding of those shifts to price your property competitively.
Because sticking to a price you decided on 6 months ago, when the market's doing something totally different now, that's not going to work out well for anyone.
Exactly. And this is where having an agent who is really plugged into the market is crucial. They need to have their finger on the pulse of those market dynamics.
They're the ones who are seeing the offers come in, seeing what's closing and what's not. They have that frontline intel.
Precisely. And that brings us to the third and often overlooked level of market knowledge, the macro lens.
The macro lens. Okay, I like it. So we're zooming out now.
Exactly. We're talking interest rates, economic forecasts, even job numbers on a local level.
So it's not just about real estate, it's about the whole economic ecosystem, right?
Exactly. Because all of these factors influence buyer behavior, which ultimately impacts what they're willing to pay for your property.
So, for example, if a bunch of tech companies are suddenly opening offices in your area, that could mean increased demand for office space, making your building more valuable, right?
Exactly. Understanding those broader economic trends allows you to anticipate market shifts and position your property strategically.
It's like having a crystal ball, but instead of magic, it's just good data.
I love it. Okay, let's move on to something a little more flashy. Let's talk marketing, because this source makes it clear that getting eyes on your property is absolutely crucial. They even use this great term, exposure explosion.
Right? Gotta love that.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, without a well-executed marketing strategy, your ideal buyer might never even know your property is available.
You're not going to sell anything if nobody knows it's for sale. So how do you actually achieve this exposure explosion? What are we talking about here?
Well, they talk about this balance between digital marketing and more traditional networking.
So it's not just about posting on LoopNet and calling it a day.
No way. I mean, LoopNet is definitely important. That's where a lot of serious buyers are looking. But you can't underestimate the power of social media. Oh, yeah, because you're trying to reach people who might not be actively searching for a property right this second, but who might be interested if they knew about it.
And you're targeting a specific audience with commercial property, right? You're not just trying to appeal to someone who wants to live in a nice condo. You're speaking to investors, developers, people who see the potential in that empty warehouse.
So your marketing message needs to reflect that.
100%. But it's not just about the digital side. Traditional networking still plays a huge role. This is where having a broker with deep connections in the industry can be a game changer. They might know of a buyer who's not actively looking but would be a perfect fit for your property. That's not something you're going to find on a website.
It's about who you know, as much as what you know, right? Okay, so we've talked about getting the word out there, maximizing exposure. But what happens when it's time to actually seal the deal? Let's be honest. Negotiation. That's where everyone gets a little nervous.
Rightfully so, especially with commercial real estate where the stakes are often much higher.
So Allies lists all these different negotiation skills, which can feel kind of intimidating. What's one key takeaway for someone who's maybe new to this side of commercial real estate?
Know your walkaway point before you even enter a negotiation.
What does that mean, your walkaway point?
What's the absolute lowest price you're willing to accept? What are your non-negotiables? Having those things crystal clear in your mind beforehand prevents you from making a rushed or emotional decision under pressure, because it's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment, especially if you've got a really savvy negotiator across the table.
Oh, yeah, they can smell that uncertainty, can't they?
Like sharks. Having those predetermined boundaries, though, that helps you stay grounded, keeps you from making decisions you might regret later.
It's like having an exit strategy, even before you know if you'll need it. Smart. All right, get ready, because we're about to dive into the less glamorous but equally important stuff.
Legalities.
The legal stuff, yeah.
Yep, but don't worry, we'll keep it clear, we'll keep it insightful. I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of legal jargon, I promise. It's essential, though. Allies does a great job breaking this down.
Yeah, they really do. So what should people be paying attention to?
They highlight a couple of things that even experienced sellers can trip up on.
Oh, really? Like what? Lay it on me.
First up, zoning.
Zoning. Okay, I'll admit, not the most thrilling topic at first glance. But why does it matter so much?
Because zoning dictates how you can use a property, not just what it is.
So give me an example.
Okay, let's say you're selling a building that's always been a retail space, right? But a buyer comes in, they're excited, they want to turn it into, I don't know, a fitness studio.
Okay, I can see where this is going.
Right. Zoning regulations could totally throw a wrench in their plans if the area isn't zoned for that kind of use.
So even if they love the building, if the zoning doesn't allow for it, they're kind of stuck.
Exactly. And that's why it's crucial to understand the zoning regulations for your property.
Early in the game.
Yes, early on. So you can manage expectations, avoid those nasty surprises, and market the property to the right buyers.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? What other legal landmines should we be aware of?
Title searches.
Title searches. All right, what are those all about? Break it down for us.
Think of a title search like a background check for your property. It's about uncovering any hidden issues that could derail a sale down the line.
Ooh, hidden issues. Now, those don't sound good.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of issues are we talking about here?
So you could have a situation where there's a lien against the property that you're completely unaware of. Maybe from some old debt, a contractor dispute, who knows, these things happen. Or there could be easements on the property that you've totally forgotten about.
Those easements, right.
That give someone else the right to use a portion of your land, which could throw a wrench in a buyer's development plans.
Oh, yeah, that would definitely cause some problems.
Right. And that's why title searches are so important. They protect both you, the seller, and the buyer.
It's about making sure everything is above board, legally speaking.
Exactly. Ensuring a clean, smooth transfer of ownership. No surprises.
Love it. Okay, so we've talked about zoning, title searches, basically, how to make sure the legal side of things doesn't trip us up. But throughout all of this, Allies keeps coming back to the importance of that client-broker relationship.
Rightfully so.
They really see that as the foundation for a smooth and successful sale. And one thing they talk about, which I think is brilliant, is this idea of a needs assessment.
Love that. It's so crucial. This is where, from the get-go, you sit down with your broker and you map out your goals for the sale.
Okay, so everyone's on the same page about what they want to achieve.
Yeah. Like, are you trying to close quickly, even if it means maybe accepting a slightly lower offer? Or is your top priority squeezing every last dollar out of the deal, even if it takes a bit longer?
Because those are very different approaches, and you need a broker who's aligned with your priorities.
Exactly. By understanding your motivations, your tolerance for risk, your broker can tailor their approach to match. They become your advocate.
It's about having someone in your corner, fighting for what matters most to you.
Absolutely. And that ties into their next point, which is communication.
Communication, the key to any good relationship.
It really is. And with real estate transactions, it's not just about returning calls promptly,
Yeah, although that's always nice.
It's about proactive communication, being open, being transparent throughout the entire process, keeping you in the loop, especially when, and let's be real, when challenges arise.
Because there are always going to be bumps in the road.
Yeah.
Right? No deal is perfectly smooth.
Exactly. And that's where that trust factor comes into play. When you have that solid foundation of trust with your broker, you know they're not hiding anything.
You're both working together to overcome obstacles, not pointing fingers.
Exactly. And the final element Allies emphasizes is adaptability.
Adaptability.
Yeah.
All right. Why is that so important in commercial real estate?
Because this market, it's dynamic, it's ever-changing. Interest rates fluctuate, new regulations pop up out of nowhere. What buyers are interested in today could be old news 6 months from now.
It's a roller coaster.
Right. So you need a broker who can roll with the punches.
Someone who's always a few steps ahead.
Exactly. Someone who can pivot, adjust their strategy, and keep you informed about those changes every step of the way.
It's like they're not just your broker, they're your business partner. They're in the trenches with you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a strategic partnership, not just a transaction. And that makes all the difference. And that distinction, that partnership mentality, can make or break your experience.
Totally. And speaking of making a good impression, one thing I really appreciated about Allies' advice was they get down to brass tacks,
They get real. Yeah.
They're not afraid to give very specific advice, which tells me they're really in the trenches dealing with these transactions day in and day out.
They've seen it all.
Exactly. So what were some of those nuggets of wisdom that really resonated with you?
Honestly, I love how upfront they are about overpricing. They don't sugarcoat it at all.
Yeah, they're like, don't do it.
They've clearly seen firsthand how that backfires.
Because it does. It scares away potential buyers and ultimately hurts everyone involved. It's like you only get one shot to make a first impression.
Exactly. And in real estate, that first impression is often your listing price.
Right. And they also really emphasize understanding the local market. They say location is even more critical in commercial real estate than residential.
Which makes sense when you think about it.
Oh, absolutely. But what does that mean in practice? Like, what are we talking about beyond just being in a desirable city or a good zip code?
It's about understanding the microdynamics within those areas.
Give me an example. Paint me a picture.
Okay, so let's say you find a property. Seems like a steal based on square footage alone. Maybe even some recent sales in the area. But it's located in a part of town that's, I don't know, maybe there's construction plan that'll block access for a year.
Or a major employer just announced they're leaving, something like that.
Exactly. That's where having that deep local knowledge is absolutely essential.
It's about more than just checking boxes on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
You got to really understand the neighborhood, the street, the whole 9 yards.
100%. And then, of course, they talk about property condition, and they're not just talking about, making sure the landscaping looks nice.
Yeah, because a fresh coat of paint can only hide so much.
Exactly. It's about understanding how major repairs, outdated systems, all of that can impact a buyer's perception of value.
So a leaky roof is a much bigger deal in a commercial property than it might be in a residential one.
Exactly. Buyers want to know what they're getting into, and they're going to factor those potential costs into their offer.
It's about being upfront and transparent about the reality of the property, not trying to hide potential problems.
Because those problems will come out eventually. It's always better to be upfront and build that trust with potential buyers.
Transparency is key. Wow, we really covered a lot of ground today.
We did.
From market analysis and marketing strategies, all the way to those nitty-gritty legalities, and of course, that crucial client-broker relationship. So as we wrap up, out of everything we discussed today, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to walk away with?
Honestly, do your homework. Knowledge is power in any real estate transaction, but it's especially true when it comes to commercial properties. The more informed you are, the better equipped you'll be to navigate this complex world and come out on top.
I love that. Knowledge is power. So for anyone listening who's about to embark on their commercial real estate journey, here's something to think about. What's your top priority? What matters most to you in this process? Is it finding a broker who really gets you? Or maybe it's diving deep into those market trends to make sure you're one step ahead. Whatever it is, identify it, focus on it, and remember, you don't have to go it alone.
Exactly. Find the right partners, ask questions, and never be afraid to learn something new.
Couldn't agree more. And be sure to check out the show notes for links to Allies Commercial Realty's website and any other resources we mentioned today. Until next time, happy investing. And remember, a deep dive into knowledge is always a smart move.
Get in touch with Allies Commercial Realty at info@alliescommercialrealty.com to find your ally in commercial real estate.